Hello and welcome to Hearing Your Future, the Coding Your Future podcast. My name is Duncan and I'm on a mission to help you design, build, test and code your future in computing. In this podcast we'll talk to current and former students of computer science to find out more about their journey from student to professional. What's their story? How are they coding their future? What advice would they offer their former selves and fellow students, and where are they headed next? My guest today is Brian Yim Tam. He studied a Bachelor of Science degree in Computer Science with Business and Management and a year in industry. And this episode was recorded in the summer of 2022 when he graduated. So thank you for coming in today, Brian, and telling us a little bit more about your journey as a computer science student. Before we start, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to study computer science?
Yeah, sure. So I'm originally from Spain, and honestly, I've always been sort of interested in computers and technology in general. So choosing computer science as a degree was kind of natural to me, more or less. And in my case, I went for the option of computer science with business and management, which I don't think is an option anymore. Nonetheless, it sort of combines computer science with some business subjects. So you kind of get exposure to both fields. And I started in Manchester in 2018.
Before the pandemic.
Had a very normal first year, had half of a very normal second year, which got promptly interrupted by the pandemic.
Yeah.
Which was obviously not a great time for everybody, but actually, as a result of the pandemic, that kind of made me want to do an industrial placement.
Right. So you weren't originally thinking of doing a placement,
No.
I guess.
So some of my friends were going to do it, but I wasn't that convinced because originally I didn't really see the value or the point of doing an industrial experience. But primarily, I kind of did not want to graduate online because that's what I was expecting if I did my third year right after the pandemic. So I kind of started panicking and looking for a placement right when the pandemic started becoming a thing.
Right.
And struggled quite a lot, especially
What time of the year did you start looking? As the pandemic hit in sort of February, January time, are we talking, or was it before that?
So I actually applied to some random summer internships before that. So around say October, November-ish,
right,
2019. But I was just applying just for the sake of applying. I wasn't too motivated or prompted to find a job, which is a bit weird.
No, I think lots of students do that. So don't worry.
Yeah,
that's a common pattern I see, is the sort of just try anything.
Yeah, but then it got to March, April when lockdowns were a thing and university was closed. So on the bright side, that gave me more time to kind of look for jobs and many opportunities out there. But on the other hand, many companies were stopping any hiring, and there were just a lot of hiring freezes because no one knew what the outcome of the pandemic would be and the impact it would have on, companies' finances. So yeah, it was good in the sense that I had more free time, but bad in the sense that it was, I'd say, probably much more difficult to find a placement than during usual times.
Right. Yeah. So you struggled a bit. I mean, did you have how many places did you apply to for placement?
So I kind of started out applying to companies I was very interested in, or just fields I was very interested in. And when that didn't really work out, I just started basically sending my CV to any software engineering internship or placement that would come across. And in total, I don't know, but definitely more than 30. I'd say somewhere around the 50-ish range.
Right. And did you get any interviews from that initially?
So initially, no. Once things started sort of settling down a bit, so around the end of April, start of May, I was getting more replies back, I guess. So I was getting more opportunities to do interviews or virtual assessment centers since I couldn't do them in person anymore, which is obviously a bit strange since everything was now done over Zoom, as opposed to doing them in person. But yeah, I'd say out of the 50 companies, I think I did a total of 10 final round interviews or assessment centers. And I still didn't manage to get anything until the end of August, start of September, which is kind of late typically for finding an industrial placement, because that's
So that
right
was
before
when your placement started or was about to start, kind of thing.
well, when my third year was theoretically about to
so
start.
you would have, in September, you would have been starting your third and final year.
Exactly, which
and you were looking for placements.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was kind of waiting on replies from 3 companies like around the end of August, and I was really panicking, honestly, because I didn't know where I was going for a start, because I didn't know what city I'd be in, and I'd have to find accommodation, etc.
Yeah. So what happened? The opportunity that came up was with Disney. Is that right? It was Disney streaming.
Yeah, that was with Disney Streaming, which is sort of the division within Disney, which is in charge of building out Disney Plus, their streaming service. And they used to be based in Stockport, Manchester. Well, they have an office here, but they also have teams across the US and some other European cities. And I somehow came across that around mid-August, I think. I'm not sure if it was from Duncan yourself sharing a post on LinkedIn or just some random friend liking a post on LinkedIn. But basically, one of their recruiters made a post on LinkedIn saying that they were looking for students for placements, but like they started their process really late because it was their first time doing it and because of the impact of COVID. So I thought, might as well give it a shot, right? And I applied and I got in, and that was kind of my saving grace to my placement year.
Oh, that was good. And so, the other thing, was there a technical interview? Did you do any sort of coding interview at all?
Yes. So for Disney, it's been a while. So first of all, I had a phone screen with the recruiter because surprisingly, apparently many people applying to placements and internships don't even qualify. They're just people who've graduated for like 5 years and they still think they can apply. After that, there was a technical challenge. I believe in my case, it was a hacker rank.
So it's an open-ended thing where you were given a task and given was this against the clock, or were you given a period of time which to go away and complete it?
I don't exactly remember. I think this hacker rank was like a 2-hour one, but It was kind of an open-ended task. I don't think I can really go into the details of the task.
Yeah.
But it was more of a scenario task, I'd say. So it's not the typical algorithms or complexity question which you might get at other companies. It was more of a specific use case within Disney Plus, and you had to sort of build out a simple version of a certain feature.
And kind of say what you do next, It sounds a little bit like in a way, you get these sort of situational judgment questions in an interview where you're given a scenario. This is quite a concrete scenario, so it's not a theoretical scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like this better than situational judgment questions because those seem to be a bit more sort of HR-y, I guess, and not really technical, whereas this was like an actual technical question.
Right.
It was kind of similar to some of the first-year labs, I'd say.
Right.
But so after submitting this, I got invited to a final round with 2 engineers, I believe, where we kind of sort of went over my background, went over my submission for the hacker rank and why I made certain design decisions and why I chose to implement it that specific way. They also pointed out like some suggestions on how I could have improved my code, for example. And yeah, that was basically it.
I suppose a sort of unusual thing about that for a lot of students is they're not used to having other people look at their code.
Yeah.
For a start. The other thing they're not used to is sort of discussing and you're having to justify design decisions you make, which you wouldn't do in an exam scenario. You just come up with an answer, and maybe you try and justify it, but it's kind of it's a very different kind of process where
definitely
there's a bit more sort of thinking out loud going on in a lot of technical interviews where you can sort of explain your reasoning. It's like the classic thing in maths where you show your working kind of thing, how you got there, which is sometimes just as important as whatever solution you came up with, I guess.
I'd say in interviews it's more important than the solution because first of all, they kind of want to see that you actually came up with a solution and didn't copy it or have someone else do it for you, which surprisingly enough is a thing. And also the part about speaking out loud, I think it's like the most important part of doing interviews, because when you're coding, you might be having certain thoughts in your head, but other people don't really know why you're doing things that way. So why you use the for loop instead of a while loop, for example. And I'd say speaking out loud and just saying what you're thinking is key to succeeding in those sort of live coding interviews.
Sort of testing how well you communicate, isn't it? Because it's not just
and also that.
what the solution is or how you came to that solution, but it's then how you articulate that solution to somebody who, I guess the people you were talking to were both technical, so you could talk technical stuff with them, but it's as much about how you say it and how you articulate as to what your specific answer is. Great. So so after the interview, you were offered the job straight away, I guess, or was it sort of a bit of a delay, or was it
there was a bit of a delay because I think one of the recruiters, there were two working on recruiting placement students. I think one of the recruiters went on annual leave or something.
Right.
So it was an anxious weekend, I think like 5 days in total, because I was really panicking at that point. And then I got the call telling me I actually got a job, which was a relief.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of, especially at that time of year when there's so much uncertainty, and that time of year you're thinking, I mean, I guess the other thing is you're thinking about your third year project and am I going to go into third year or not? And that's a bit of a stressful thing. So you started at Disney, and I guess was that entirely online? I guess you would have met people in an interview, but it would have been a virtual interview, right?
Yeah. Right. So all the interviews were held virtually over Zoom, and the placement itself was all online due to COVID. I was still based in Manchester, but the entire Disney streaming office was all working remotely. Like the office was closed. I think to this day, they still haven't reopened.
Right.
And everyone's just been working remotely, which I guess is one of the few perks to come out of the pandemic.
Did you ever get to meet these people physically? I mean,
So during April, I had the opportunity to go down to the Disney office in London for a volunteering thing on one of the days. So funnily enough, I met some of the people from the London office, which were from the main Disney company.
Right.
In terms of my co-workers, I got to meet some of them because I think around May, when lockdown measures were starting to ease and people could go out for drinks and have lunch, I met some of those then. But so far, I'd say, I think that's one of the downsides of working remotely during a pandemic. You don't really get to interact with people that much because you only see them in meetings. And
it's not the same as bumping into people in the corridor.
Definitely
like you would in a physical environment. So you came back to your final year a year later, and you did a project. Can you tell us a little bit about what your final year project, which you've just finished, has been about? Is it something related or something completely different?
So it's something completely unrelated. During my time at Disney, I rotated between two teams. One of the teams was an SRE team, so that's site reliability engineering, which is kind of like DevOps and making sure that developers can deploy applications smoothly, etc. And then I was on another team, which was more in charge of experimentation. So there's a concept in sort of deploying products called A/B testing, which is where you test out two different versions of a feature, for example, or a web page to two different groups of people. And I was working on a team
randomly assigned.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you sort of gather statistics about, is a green button better or a blue button better for the audience? But I was working on a team which was building an internal tool to sort of like randomize the customers to split them and to gather statistics. And then when I came back, my project is a blockchain-based voting system, which has absolutely nothing to do with that. But it was a self-proposed project because it's a field I'm interested in.
Right.
And like when I was sort of looking for a placement, I had already proposed this project just in preparation in case I needed to do the third year.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, it's quite a good experience proposing your own project, I think, because it's a certain kind of skill, right? Pitching, saying enough about your project that it sounds like it's something that you can get your teeth stuck into.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say if you're particularly interested in a certain field and can't really find an option you like, you could just propose your own to supervisors who are in that field. So if you're interested in machine learning or like something specific to machine learning, you could always propose your own, which is great, I'd say.
Right. And you say you found a supervisor to supervise a blockchain project.
Yeah. So for me, I kind of was looking at the blockchain projects that were available in the list of projects. And then I found some supervisors who were sort of in both of the field, and then I proposed to them directly.
Right. That's a good way of doing it. So how did that go? Did you enjoy it? Was it fun digging into it? Because I suppose one of the big differences between doing a third year project and doing commercial projects is you don't have a customer.
Yes.
You don't have users you have to worry about, so you can be a bit more experimental and just kind of dig into things because they look interesting. So how did you find that process? Was that something you enjoyed, or was it actually quite hard work compared to?
I'd say it was fascinating because I'd split the work I've had in computer science sort of into three categories. One being sort of theoretical stuff that you get taught in lectures in different subjects. One being more practical hands-on skills that you do in modules like software engineering or when you actually do your placement. But then, well, I guess it depends on your project, but many projects do sort of have a more academic side to it where you actually have to delve into what people have done in the past in that field, do some literature review and do some reading, and then sort of review what they've done or try and come up with something new and original on your own. So I'd say it was definitely fascinating for me and like sort of a good break from usual uni work, especially because I proposed my own project and that's something I'm interested in. So yeah, I guess that's the contrast.
Yeah, good. Yeah, and I think it's often more motivating, isn't it, when it's your baby basically.
Definitely, yes.
Your idea, and you were interested in it before you started, so you kind of that's something that keeps you going throughout the year. Makes it, otherwise it can be quite hard work on a project you don't enjoy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So that brings us up to now. So
yeah.
You've literally just finished now. You've got some exams.
I am currently in the middle of exams.
So thank you for coming and speaking to me during exams. I hope it's not too stressful. And then you finish, I guess, in a couple of weeks' time, something like that. Is it how many exams you got? 3 exams?
Yeah, I've got three. So
exams.
I should finish in around 2 weeks, I think.
Right. Okay. And what are your plans after that? Do you have any concrete plans at the moment, or are you working on your next steps on?
So I'm not going to do a master's yet, I think. I do have 2 job offers lined up, which I actually have to decide between and get back to them right now. But
is that an easy decision to make? I mean, how do you?
No,
I think this is often a dilemma that I see with placement students and internships. If you've got multiple offers, it's like, how do you work out which is the best for you? That's quite a difficult problem, I think.
That's a great question. So there's many things you need to take into account. And first of all, the most obvious one is compensation, because that is a big factor. And honestly, being a Manchester graduate and having relatively high grades, I'd say, I think people should kind of know what they're worth and not undersell themselves, because some companies will just sort of try and take advantage of graduate students because they don't know how much they're worth.
Yeah,
we're actually worth more than you think, I'd say. But also you should take into account sort of the company culture, and if you've already had an internship or placement there, whether you actually like working there and how people there sort of operate and what kind of the vibe is. And I guess also location, because in my case, one of the offers is in Manchester, one is in London, which is obviously a big difference. Yeah, especially in terms of cost of living, but also in terms of things you can do, I'd say.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer there. I think it's kind
depends
of
on the
decide
person,
on what you want to do. So you don't have to name the companies if you're still deciding between them, but I guess it is quite a big decision, isn't it? Because it's like something that shapes what comes after. It's in the same way as taking a placement shapes what follows on from that. So I mean, is remote work, I mean, the sort of changed world that we're in now, is hybrid working a sort of the norm in both of those companies, or are they expecting you to be in the office? Or
that's a great point. So both of them sort of are quite flexible in this regard, I'd say. Neither of them expect me to be in the office every day, but one of the perks is that one of the companies does let me work from abroad a certain amount of days per year,
right?
Which is quite attractive to me because personally I like traveling and
being in sunny places like somewhere outside the UK.
Yes, exactly. So the higher flexibility there is kind of a big perk for me. So I'm trying to decide between that. But say across the whole industry, post-COVID, I'd say generally companies are more open to flexible working. Many companies are doing kind of 3 days from home and 2 days in the office, or the opposite way around.
And I guess everyone's still figuring this out, like how is this going to work in the longer run as well?
Yeah, especially because I'd say many companies' employees have realized that employees can actually work from home, and it's also good for the company because they also have to rent out less office space, I guess.
Yeah. I remember visiting students on ARM and placement, and they were. I mean, a lot of software engineering, a lot of companies work in software and technology and hardware already we're using Zoom for already doing remote collaboration where your teams of software engineers are distributed around the globe. So you had to do this hybrid working because a lot of your meetings would be people in a different time zone. And they switched sort of straight away because that's what they'd always been doing. But other companies, it's been a bit of a bigger adaptation, I think.
Yeah, I'd say it's usually not an issue sort of at smaller companies or sort of newer companies like startups, but I'd say it's more of an issue in big sort of slow-moving organizations like banks, for example.
Keep talking. I'm just going to close this window. School children going past at this time of day that make a bit of a racket as they go past the window.
But yeah, as I was saying, most startups or like sort of tech-driven companies will have little to no issue with you working at home or whatever. But like banks might still want employees to come in just because of the physical presence and their traditions, I guess.
Yeah, and it depends a little bit on how customer facing you are as well. If you're more
definitely
not dealing with customers, then sometimes that gives you a bit more flexibility as to where you work. So besides the work stuff, are you planning on having a break? Because I guess this year's been quite grueling in some ways. You having managed to take some time off before you start?
Yes.
Going straight into it the minute you walk out of your last exam?
No. So both of my graduate offers start in September, thankfully.
Right, okay.
So I will sort of enjoy my last summer to the fullest extent.
Bit of traveling maybe, or
yes.
Good. Oh, great. Okay. So a couple of questions you through the end. So if you think back to, it seems like such a long time ago now, 2018, and it is a long time ago.
Remind me.
But it's especially a long time just because so much has happened in the last 4 years with coronavirus and everything else. So if you were, what advice would you give to sort of first and second year students who are starting out in computer science? What would you advise them to do in finding out what is they're going to do with their lives while they're at university?
So I'm going to be honest here. I think there's two obvious paths you can take after university. One is obviously getting a job, well, typically in the same field, so working as a software engineer or data scientist or whatever. And the other path is sort of more academic. So you might want to go into do some more further research, either in terms of a master's or a PhD in certain field like machine learning, for example. I'd say if you are not interested in academia, although your opinions might change throughout your degree, obviously, but if you're not interested and you're just more interested in working in software engineering, I'd say start early. And this is both in terms of knowing people, but also learning soft skills such as how to communicate with other developers, and also participating in things like career events held by the Unix Society, for example. If you're in second year, I would strongly recommend going to Pass 2 just for career advice and information about how to structure your CVs, how to prepare for
peer-assisted study scheme, isn't it?
Yeah, so Pass 2 is our peer-assisted scheme where third-year students or sort of give weekly sessions to coach second-year students on things like both in terms of like course unit choices, but also a lot of focus on industrial experience, I'd say. So how to get a job.
Actually, what you've been doing is a pass.
Yes, so I mean, it might be slightly biased.
Facilitator, is it? I guess. What's your
leader?
You're a pass leader. So you've been passing on the advice.
Yes,
that you've had in weekly sessions to students. To say, give them even something like eyeballing their CV, having a quick look. Or
definitely. I'd say getting your CV up to scratch is one of the first crucial steps into getting an internship or a placement, because especially if you're from abroad, because you might not be used to the format of CVs used in the UK, for example. But of course, Duncan is always a great resource.
I always say like the more people that see your CV, the better. It's like code. The more people that see your code, the more time, the less bugs there'll be. Lots of people see it, they'll be able to squash whatever bugs there may be in your CV.
Exactly, because everyone will have differing opinions.
And they'll probably all disagree with each other as well.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, there's common things, but yeah, and also just prepare early in terms of interview preparation, for example, again, you'll probably learn about this in past too, but also talk to Duncan because he has a lot of knowledge about applying to jobs.
Very kind.
To say the very least.
Things like, I mean, practical stuff like, did you do much in the terms of like hacker rank exercises or the cracking the coding, the interview book up there with Gail Blackman McDowell's sort of tome?
That's a highly controversial book, let's just say, in the sense that it's a very complete guide to approaching interviews, but it might be slightly too complete and too long. Although
it can be a little bit daunting if you're preparing for a technical interview.
Yeah,
you look at that and think, oh my God, I've got to know all this stuff.
If you're trying to get into like large tech companies, like tier one companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook, well, Meta, I guess, then definitely sort of treat that as your Bible, I'd say, and just grind HackerRank and lead code, because that's pretty much all they will ask. Personally, I'm not a fan of the style of the questions they ask, because it's basically just memorizing algorithms and memorizing data structures.
And I think there's a lot more to being a software engineer than just knowing algorithms.
Definitely, because like once you get the job, you're not going to be expected to recite the complexity of a certain algorithm. You can just Google it. There's a lot of sort of transferable skills you can have as software engineers, such as like picking up a language quickly, which I personally think is more important. But if you do want to get into those companies, do grind HackerRank and lead code. If you don't, maybe do some, but don't devote all your time to it, because you also have things like coursework during second year, which is more important, honestly.
Yeah. And having a life as well. I mean, this is a difficult thing can you say a little bit about that? How did you manage to balance the sort of work-life balance thing? Because it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, it's perhaps been especially difficult in coronavirus because you've been stuck at home or in your accommodation where you've been working, and that's been your personal space as well. And it's like putting those boundaries between work and life is really quite challenging.
Yeah, so take care of your mental health. I think that's very important, to say the very least. And in terms of balancing work and just not work in general, obviously when you're at uni, that might be a bit difficult, but like if you're on an internship or placement, just log off whenever your time is up. Honestly, like if you're contracted to do a certain number of hours, don't do free overtime. Like there's no point, honestly.
Yeah, and I guess this is where offices are nice, aren't they? Because you kind of generally know that when you're in an office, you're working, hopefully.
Yeah. So
when you're not in an office, that's time when you shouldn't be working. Obviously, again, those boundaries have been blurred, but you kind of I found when I was a student a long time ago, I just used to go to the library because I knew that when I was in the library, I was working, and when I wasn't in the library, I wasn't working, and it was just easier for me to manage that way. But I guess everyone works differently, don't they?
No, yeah, definitely. Because I'm a person that doesn't work that well from home. I kind of need like a separation, like spatial separation between work and leisure, I guess. Yeah. So in terms of uni, well, what I do is I go to the library or I'll come into Kilburn to work, and then there's sort of a more clear distinction between the two, which honestly does kind of help.
Yeah, good. Okay. So I think we've covered everything. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? Anything that you'd like to share with students as in your role as a past leader or as a computer science graduate generally for anyone studying computing at wherever university they happen to be at?
I guess one of the things is just don't undersell yourself, because software engineers are in high demand. Even if you're not like the best of the best, you still shouldn't undersell yourself and know what you're worth.
Yeah. So how did you find out about like the salaries? I mean, where were you looking to find out about salary information to say, right, you're trying to gauge how much you're worth as a computer science graduate? Where do you go?
Great point. So first of all, talk to people. If you're around Kilburn, there's probably a lot of people who have done internships or have come back from placements. And generally, if you ask them how much they were making, they'd probably be quite happy to answer, or at least give you a range. Obviously, this depends on the company and also the location, but this information can really help you gauge whether you're being sort of given a lower compensation than you should, for example. There's also online resources like Glassdoor or I think levels.fyi, which has pretty detailed information on many tech companies and what salaries or salary ranges they're offering people with different experience.
And then you're not underselling. Or I mean, the other one is overselling yourself, right? You can sometimes cut yourself out by asking for too much compensation. But I think the converse is more often likely to happen because companies are always trying to get the best they can, the most they can for the least amount of money. So they're always going to try and get graduates for the lowest price they can.
Exactly.
It's big enough to get them drawn in to come and work for them, but then low enough that they can save money there. Okay, good. Well, thank you, Brian, for coming in today. It's good to speak to you.
No worries.
And I wish you the best of luck with whichever of those two companies that you choose in the future. And thanks again.
Thank you, Duncan. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers. Thank you for listening to Hearing Your Future, the Coding Your Future podcast. You can find out more about this episode and all the other episodes in the full transcripts published in the Coding Your Future guidebook at cdyf.me/hearing. That's Charlie Delta Yankee Foxtrot Mike Echo. I hope you found something useful to help you code your future today.